Hi, everybody. I am Todd Gressley, the gallery director here at AO5 Gallery in Austin, Texas, and I'm being joined by an amazing artist that I've known probably longer than any of the other artists here that we carry. Yeah, Isabelle Dupuy, who is coming to us live from north of Houston. Hi, Isabelle.
Hi, how are you?
I'm awesome. I need a haircut. Something
I think
fierce.
a lot of people do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to pull an Anderson Cooper and try to cut my own hair. I don't have that gene in me. But anyway, behind me is your art. And you're probably the most recognizable artist in the gallery because people see you when they travel. In fact, I surprised you once in New Orleans when you were painting live in New Orleans. I was dressed like a street bum and you were like, hi. I was like, no, it's me. It's Todd. But anyway, you've been in the gallery probably longer than any other artist too. And before we get into your technique, let's talk about why your landscape art surpasses other landscape artists. Why does your landscape art just make such a huge difference in landscape art compared to other artists?
Well, for me, I mean, my inspiration is from the Impressionist for sure. So I already have kind of inspiration from them. But what I love to take is look at the nature and make it brighter, make it more bold. And I always try to be very different. I always trying to find a way that is different from everybody in bringing, I love some of the Impressionists like Van Gogh. I love to see his contrast of colors. He'll put the green and the red right next to each other. Or he'll put, and so for me, I love that contrast. So I always try to be very bold with the color. I can be different. I grew up in the south of France, so I see nature a little bit differently. I see trees that I grew up with that, are here, but in a different setting. So I just isolate sometimes just the tree and I'll do my own background or do just, the idea behind. But, there's trees that are the same around the world. They're just in different settings. So it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, you do enhance nature. You can find any landscape artist that paints the tree and the lake and the bing and the boom, but you actually enhance and bring it forward. And I was going to ask you about the south of France, whether it's, changed your perspective. Like when you do a bluebonnet piece, I can't keep it on the wall. And because I think you see bluebonnets differently than people that grew up in Texas, because you could have a photo of a bluebonnet anywhere, but yours are different, and that kind of brings me to your technique, which I'm actually jumping again. I want to talk about that later, but now that we're into it, you are known as a three-dimensional artist. You do what's called build-up art. Without giving your secrets away,
I have a painting in front of me that's a little bit, smaller, so I can actually hold it. But you can see, for me, it's just layers of paint. I only use paint, and you can see that it's layers coming from a dark, a dark color, and then you put a layer and layers, and you just layers the paint, and it dries, and then you layer it again. And from the dark to the light, it just pops. And then there's a lot of different colors. If you contrast the colors with other colors, it will pop as well because there will be a contrast. So
when I look at your tree trunks, which I show it to collectors all the time, you can stand on the right side of the room and look at a tree trunk from the left or right, and you go to the other side, it's completely almost like the light changes because you'll use a lavender on the right that you can see only on the right, and then when you go on the left, you can't see the lavender at all, and it actually changes the mood. Your paintings literally change times and places because of the way you paint.
Yep, I do. My water lily, I put a bit of gold on the lily pad, and that gold it sees in some lights, but then you don't see it with other lights. So I always try to find some effects so that each painting or each series has a special effect.
Yeah, and it does, because I'll close the gallery at night, and we have an emergency light that stays on, and then I get the street lights that come in, and I'll see the gold only at night. So not only can you see your paintings during the day, I mean, clearly, but at nighttime, like those water lilies shine at night. You can be going to bed and there you'll still see your painting. It's pretty extraordinary.
The Impressionists and the early Impressionists had texture, but it was so little, but it was so much for that period of time. But now with acrylic and with all these, good, with the paint, you can just do a lot more.
Yeah, and you're doing a lot more, especially when it comes to, like, I saw your new desert scapes. I don't have any in the gallery yet, and I can't wait to get some. But you're doing these. I did have a couple, and they sold right away. Actually, I take that back. I had like a blue agave plant or something, and I hung it, and it literally sold 2 days later. But you're doing desert scapes that I haven't seen yet with some of the like Joshua tree and praying cactuses. Did you
Yep.
travel out there and get inspired? What's happening with the deserts, and where does all this inspiration come from?
Yeah, well, you kind of wanted me to paint some new desert scenes, so and I actually was in Mexico a few months ago, and I saw a lot of the different cactus because I've always kind of painted cactus that are more from Texas. So sometimes I go to Arizona, and I've seen a lot of different cactus, and actually I grow them in my backyard, so I have a lot of different variety because that's what I say is a lot of things that I paint, I like to grow them, and Texas is kind of not too difficult because it's humid, so there's always water. Cactus still grow, which I'm always amazed. But so for me to see them in nature, to see them in my yard, I get ideas, and so I wanted to do desert scene, something different. Often I go back to what I did like 5 years ago, just see, oh, that's how I did it. And um, being in Mexico, I kind of saw different composition. I was like, oh, I didn't know that could be together. Or sometimes you just see so much ideas in nature. I mean, it's never, I'm never lacking of ideas because I always see different things. That
Well,
is,
that's what I love about you is that you people have a notion that you're from southern France and you live in Texas now, and then all of a sudden it's like, Eureka! I'm gonna do these cool desert scenes, and they are really fantastic. I mean, they're very special. But you wouldn't associate a southern France girl, doing desert
the
scenes, and it
desert.
really
Yeah, we don't have, actually we don't have really cactus in France, so no, we
right.
don't.
No, no. I mean, maybe down
But
in Canada they've got some weird succulent things, but not like desert cactus. And I'll tell you, it works because of your three-dimensional texture paintings. Think
mhm.
about how textural cacti and all those things are. It really works. Almost every artist I have here that's as accomplished as you are, with the years under their belt and the collector base they have limited edition prints. And limited editions are amazing for collectors. And a lot of people, underestimate the power of printmaking, even though Picasso and Dali, these were all famous printmakers, Andy
Yeah.
Warhol, etc. You can't do prints of your work. You can't do limited editions. You just can't, because there's no way to photograph your work. Do you feel like that's a hinder for you, or do you feel like, no, this is great for me because I'll always just be a painter?
Well, I mean, there's a good thing and bad thing. I could, I mean, I could take a break and just print them. It just, we've, and actually we've printed one, to show clients, like, this is how it just doesn't look right. Even for me to photograph is hard. We take time to photograph each photos, and we have to have the light specific way. It's really hard. Like, I know you talked about the cactus series that I did, but the photos for me does not render. It's just, it's not as good.
Even looking at these in this interview in the background, people can't see how tactile your work is. I've watched you at art shows before, talking with clients, people buying your paintings, and to see people, I watch people walk up to the booth you're at, or people in the gallery here, and once they're next to it, it changes, their whole countenance changes. They say, oh, these are really nice trees, these are really nice rivers. Then they get up close and I can see their face change. And it's the same thing every time with you if they don't know your work. But
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, when people come in the gallery, they're like, oh, I've seen her in Aspen, or I've seen her other places. And so it's an honor for me to be able to have your work right here, next door from Houston and Austin and Texas. I mean, really, it's a real honor, because you could go to any gallery you wanted. I mean, you really could.
It's an honor to be in your gallery. I mean, I've been with you for 10 years. I mean,
Yep.
it wasn't, so it's been really fun. And Austin is a really great place. Your gallery is like a museum. I've always enjoyed your gallery because you've had quality artists that are just, I felt like I'm in a museum. You display art like in a museum. So for me, it was a privilege to be part of Austin. And talking about original, I'm so happy I do original. I mean, for me, it's like the clients knows that there's not going to be ever going to be the same painting. So
That's
for
true.
me, print is great, but for me, I do like to only do original. I mean, it's I have to, paint always, but I love to paint. And I
Well,
realize the more I paint, the more I progress, the more I learn. that if I would do it less, maybe I wouldn't evolve as much as I do. Every 6 months I evolve, I see things different.
You do evolve. And because, I mean, over the years, you'll say, hey, I'm trying this new thing, and we hang it up and it sells. I mean, I've never had a problem selling your work, which comes to, I'll do a little bit of business side talk for a second. And I guess this is more of a compliment than a question. When I have an artist that sells like you do, every year they talk to me about upping their price, upping their price, upping their price. And I beg my artists, don't increase your prices unless you cannot keep up with the demand. And you are in demand. I know how long it takes for these to be painted. I know how long it takes for them to dry. We've actually had you paint live in here, and we've dried it for a week in the back with fans on it blowing 24 hours. And thank God it's acrylic, because oil would take 6 months. It's so thick. Yeah. Anyway, my point is, you are one of the few artists that is in such great demand that has literally raised your prices one time in 10 years with me. Only once. It's a really admirable trait on you. It means that you paint all the time. You love your craft. I mean, because again, one time in 10 years, you raise your prices. Is there a reason you like to keep your price point where it is? Or are you just like, I'm good. I'm a great artist and I'm good?
Yeah. I mean, right now I can. Maybe
yes,
later when I'm older and all sore. But you know, I want my art to stay affordable. I can't do print. My goal is not to have all the galleries having art, you know, staying on the walls forever. I mean, I want all the art to go in people's homes. So I'd rather be affordable and be able to work. And I love to paint. So for me, I just paint. I mean, I paint every day.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I hope that every artist watching this from around the globe hears what you just said, because it's so important for people to be able to buy art, especially times like this, when you're stuck in your home. You want to look at things you love. And be able to see an Isabelle Dupuy piece on your wall. And again, you know, I just did a great interview with John Morse. And one of the things I love about his collage work is that every time you look at it, you see something different. Every time I look at your work, I see something I didn't notice before, because it's so very tactile. Now, again, without giving away what you do, and what was the first day in your painting life, in your brain, when you went, I'm going to do build-up painting? Like, what was the impetus for that?
Well, I mean, I've always did a little bit of texture for sure.
Yeah.
But for me, it was more, sometimes it was more because, you know, I would do experiment, like it didn't work out. So I would add some more layers, and you can't do that in oil. But I did that more with acrylic, and I thought, ooh, that looks cool. And so little by little, because it wasn't the trend when I started 3D, there was not a lot of people that were doing 3D. So it was more, you know, like the grass, how do you do it? And I would go over and I was like, oh, I don't like the grass like that. And I was like, oh, the more I add it, the more it builds up, you know. So it was more little by little, by learning, because like the lavender, you have a lavender field behind you. Well, I used to do more of the lavender with, you know, there's a lot of grass and the little flowers on top. I mean, you kind of do what you see and more, and not what you feel. And for me, I've learned to paint what I feel and not really look at the nature. I know how it looks in nature, but I want to do something that is my own, that I feel. And, you know, so I know there's, in, you know, lavender poppies, there's contrast, you know, you have to bring the flower out, you know, or the rose, you know, you have to have a contrast so they pop. But I paint more what I feel more than what it looks like.
Well, I'll tell you, there is an emotion in your work, and there's no way for me to describe it with English words or probably any words in the dictionary, but you are your own. And I see a lot of copycat artists trying to emulate what Isabelle Dupuy does, and no one can touch what you do. Again, right before we had to close down because of, you know, the zombie apocalypse, a gentleman came in that said he'd been saving up for 8 months to buy one of your pieces. He came in, it was one of those big, bold red trees. I was almost pointed at it because it was hanging right here. And he said, and then he showed me his phone. It was his screensaver. He had come in and taken a picture of it. And it was his screensaver, and he got to purchase it that day. And it's almost like you're a really good addiction. Like, you can become addicted to what you do. I know when I'm in other cities, and I know what galleries you're in, I will sneak in and peek around and see what you've done, just because I can't get enough either. So with that being said, after 10 years of working with you, is there anything coming up that maybe you're thinking about, or you want to try, or are you just going to say, no, I'm going to stick to my signature right now?
Well, I mean, I've tried, I've tried animals, actually. I've tried some animals, which was really fun. I don't have them, but the technique of the tree, which is a lot of layers. And so I'm trying to do the same technique in different things. Like, so I was doing the lighthouse. So I went to Mexico, I went to Cape Cod, because right now we can't try. I mean, I know for the next 6 months, I'm not sure I'm going to travel, which is fine. We just want to be safe and everything. But I travel a lot in the fall because I was, my kids were in college, so it was good. So I went to Cape Cod because there's a lighthouse there and I wanted to see the nature of the sea. So I do paint sea. I've been going back to the sea. So Cape Cod had the lighthouse. And when I went to Mexico, I saw the cactus. There was lighthouses and there were fish. And so I've been doing more scenes of fish with, the angelfish, all the things that I snorkel a little bit, which was amazing there around Cozumel. But I like to do other things, but I just do that a little bit just to change.
I know that lighthouse in Quintaru in Cozumel very well.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I worked in Cozumel for years doing with an art company back in the day. I used to sit there every morning. So
there, lighthouse, I go to California as well. So there's lighthouse there. So then when I go back to my photos, I say, oh, I've seen, So sometimes I start on something, I'm like, oh, and sometimes it's month. Idea stays in my mind for a month, like 3 years ago. And when I went snorkeling in the fall, I was like, oh, I want to do fish again, with the, it's really cool with all the coral and all the things. So I did a lot of series with stone because I go to Colorado. I love to hike, and there's always rivers with all these stones. So, I go back to see my daughter in college, and there's this big river in San Marcos that has a big tree, the stone with the river. And so I took a picture. I'm like, okay, that's part of my series of stones. So yeah, I always get ideas of what I see.
I love it. I'm really excited about, I got a teaser from you of the lighthouses. They're really cool. And I can't wait to see the other stuff. Again, I want to remind the viewers that it's so hard to understand what your work is like unless you see it in person, because it's so very deep and tactile and wonderful. I mean, these pieces, I swear I've seen people come up, I almost try to like smell them because they're just so fresh. Yeah, like smell-o-vision. Like it's just, it's fabulous stuff. Your longevity with me, with AO5 Gallery just proves what an amazing artist you are. And I really honestly can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with me today.
You're a great gallery, and your staff is really great to work with. I mean, that's a plus as an artist, to be treated, with respect and always being encouraged and trying to, that I can paint, new things. I really enjoy that. I appreciate that.
We love you very much. And I want you to tell Brad, that husband, hello from me. I love Brad. Hope the kids are well.
He's half, I'm 50%. He's 50% on the other side because he helps with everything else. I
talk to him all the time. I'm always like, okay, I need this, that, and the other. Brad's great. You guys are really a great team. You've really encompassed what the art world should be like. You know what I mean?
He's right here.
Well, thank you, Todd. It's all about Isabelle, but thank you.
It's Team Dupuy. It's not just Team Isabelle Dupuy. It's Team Dupuy.
I was gonna say, I should have known he was there. Was he feeding you the answers the whole time? Like,
oh no.
I'm kidding.
No, it's much better like that. Yeah.
I've never ever talked with you, Isabelle. Maybe 2 times I can think in my brain where Brad wasn't with you. My whole time.
Because I was in New Orleans, or maybe at the show. Yeah.
Yeah, one time in New Orleans, and then one time here. You were painting live and kicked him to the curb for a day. But we.
You're right. Well, yeah.
Oh, I love you all so much.
That's when I went to the Salt Lick.
Oh, right on. I just want to, first of all, Isabelle, thank you so much for being a part of this today for Todd Talks. Yeah, really appreciate it. We're trying to connect through art and still all be together. So thank you. I want to thank the viewers. My name is Todd Gressley. I'm the gallery director at AO5 Gallery, and this has been Isabelle Dupuy, one of our rockstar artists at AO5 Gallery. And thanks, Isabelle, so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right.
Todd.
Okay. Love you. Bye.
Bye.